Yep, no doubt about it. Okay, so the Cleveland Browns are in a fascinating position because they traded for Deshaun Watson, gave up a bunch of first-round picks for him, gave him this insane, fully guaranteed contract that the rest of the NFL is like, nah, that ain't going to be the way the things work moving forward. Lamar Jackson tries to get it. Nope. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert don't even try to bother trying to get it. And because of that, Deshaun Watson sort of has the Browns bent over a barrel in terms of deciding when or where he's going to play. I mean, that's probably poor phrasing. Sorry. But the point being is,
Jesus.
Well, he gets to decide what he wants to do, when he wants to play, if he wants to play. He's got a rotator cuff injury. Right. And I think what's really interesting about this scenario is that Deshaun was medically cleared before week 4 against the Ravens. Decides he tells Kevin Stefanski, I can't play. Kevin Stefanski told everybody, Deshaun knows his body. He knows how he feels. He knows whether or not he can play. He doesn't play. They have their bye. He's still medically cleared because he didn't play in week 4 and he had a bye. And then week 6 doesn't play against San Francisco. Again, medically cleared, doesn't do it. Comes back and plays in week 7 against the Titans. Or no, excuse me, against the Colts. Attempts 5 passes and hurt himself in week 3 against the Titans is what I meant. 5 passes and pulls himself out of the game because he can't drive the ball. There's all this chatter about Deshaun, including Brady, on your radio show on Fox Sports Radio, where I believe you called him. He's like a kid with
easy. So here's the problem with this. Is what happens in social media before you go there. The context.
Your radio show tweeted it out for the record.
For the record, they did. And I said this on our radio show. This is part of the problem with social media. It's part of the problem where you have people who want to chime in because they listen to a 2-minute soundbite. And there was a reference made of him being a trust fund kid, right? And we kind of brought that up in the conversation of talking about the scenario of when you sign a player to a deal like that. And mind you, we talked about this today on the radio. I'm sure it won't get picked up. I'm sure no one will clip this off for us at CBS. What Deshaun Watson did in signing that contract is probably the greatest, most progressive move we've ever seen for any NFL player ever. Yeah. Like literally.
For sure.
He's done more to move the ball forward in regards to the conversation about guaranteed contracts than anyone in the history of the NFL. Okay? So that one thing can be true. And you can also then look at how things have gone since he signed that contract and say that there's also, because of how it's gone, probably a lot of owners who are looking at saying, I don't ever want to do that now because of how things are being orchestrated. And I think my whole point was, I said, look, when you hit the jackpot, and I just asked this funny to Noah, our producer. I said, hey, if you won the jackpot, got $230 million in your pocket. I was like, are you coming into work tomorrow? He goes, no. I go, yeah, no crap. No different than any other trust fund kid who finds out their dad just left them $230 million. You're not as motivated to be out there. And so all of a sudden people take it like, oh, that's a shot at Deshaun Watson. It's not a shot at Deshaun Watson. It's a shot at the fact that we're all humans. If you got $230 million guaranteed, there would be elements where you say, yeah, if I'm not 100%, I'm not going out there. We have basketball players who get guaranteed contracts. And when they're not, it's load management. And what do the owners say in response to that, Leger? Nothing. They can't say anything.
They can't say anything.
And so they're trying to implement fine systems, all this stuff. And so the general point of it, which all we clipped off was just the trust fund thing, is when you have a contract like that, and this is really the first we've ever seen like it. So we're kind of seeing how it's going to play out in real time and whether or not any other agent, any other player are able to get an owner to do this. It then becomes difficult to do because of what's going on right now. Now, look, only Deshaun Watson, and I guess you can't say the Browns doctors because they've cleared him. His maybe own personal doctors or his agent and how he's leaking stuff to Schefter. He's kind of putting stuff out there. Because the timeline was 4 to 6 weeks. Well, the initial injury happened back in September. It's been over a month now. And so all I've ever pointed out was the fact that Kenny Pickett was dealing with an injury, came back, was able to play versus the Baltimore Ravens, and was able to get a win, fighting through stuff. Joe Burrow, who just signed a big deal, had no business starting the season. He started the season in the same division. He started the season, played through it, didn't look great. Honestly, probably should have sat out, didn't. Played through it, and still now has his team in a much better spot. Lamar Jackson's played through stuff. There's been plenty of countless examples of guys playing through stuff. My only point was it's got to be hard for a lot of other guys who are on the Browns right now, who are playing through stuff, who aren't fortunate enough to have that 5-year fully guaranteed deal. There's only, he's the only player ever, but there's probably only a handful of players in the league that have security beyond this year or maybe 2 years. And so the general point, and what we had talked about in the discussion that doesn't get clipped off or talked about, and surely doesn't make anyone talk about on Twitter or X, whatever you're calling it, is the fact that when you sign a deal like that, it puts all the control to the player.
Correct.
And then the player gets to kind of determine when he wants to play and what he wants to do because it's all guaranteed. And the Browns really don't have much of a say in it.
For instance, if I got a $230 million, if I scratch off a lottery ticket or I win the Powerball and I get $230 million and I'm visiting my parents and producer Harry's like, hey, I need you to hop on and record this for the social media team. I'm like, I'm good. You know what? I'm good.
I'm good.
I think
I'm not jumping on, Britt.
yeah. I'm like, maybe you get Breach to do that because I just got $230 million and I don't need
By the way, this isn't hate or jealousy. It's none of that. Like, I'm happy for him. I'm happy he's pushed the ball forward for players in the NFL, quarterbacks in particular.
Correct.
I think as a Browns fan, because I grew up a Browns fan, it's disappointing. I think we talked about, how I talked to people in the front office before the season. They were kind of selling me on the top 5 quarterback thing. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, he had one really great season, led the league in yards and all that, but their team didn't win. So I wasn't kind of really sure what it would look like. I'm like, well, we'll see how he comes back through everything he's been through. And the other thing I'll throw out there is forget about the shoulder stuff too. He's been through a lot of personal stuff that's come out there. And I know I've made light of it on social media because honestly, that's what we should do. It's social media.
Social media used to be fun. It used to be jokey and fun.
Seriously. Like if you want to take stuff serious, go watch the news. Go see what's going on in the rest of the world right now. Then we can have a serious conversation. But if you honestly feel like you can't joke around and have fun with some stuff on social media, you don't have a sense of humor and you're probably not built for social media. So my whole thing is like, it's not hating or anything else like that. It's disappointment, I think, for a Browns team that, just for starters, I picked to go to the playoffs this year. All right. Picked them to be a playoff team. And I think the way they are playing defensively and running the football and the pieces they have to throw to, they could be a playoff team. They could go to a Super Bowl. They could challenge the Chiefs. Like we saw them challenge the Chiefs back when Baker was there. And so if Deshaun can be what he was in Houston, they should be able to compete for a Super Bowl or for an AFC championship. But yet again, no one ever hear that. No one ever hears the clips and things we talk about.
Dudes,
thanks for bringing that up.
Which one is your favorite headline of the ones I'm going to read here? Brady Quinn, an epic Twitter feud with Deshaun Watson's trainer. That's the New York Post. Browns Wire, former Browns QB Brady Quinn gets into Twitter spat with Deshaun Watson's QB trainer. Outkick the coverage. Brady Quinn eviscerates Deshaun Watson's number one fanboy with gripping criticism. And finally, Barstool Sports. Brady Quinn utterly humiliated Deshaun Watson and his private QB coach.
So let me
humiliates, eviscerates, Lord.
Annihilates.
Who gets the most credit from all of this? It's his quarterback coach.
Yeah,
that's
good
the funny
point.
thing about this is the people who end up getting the most credit about it is the quarterback coach. Like he started this beef, and now he's got literally, I think that tweet probably has millions of views. But like he's the one that wins off this. It's not Deshaun.
Nobody even knew he was Deshaun Watson's quarterback coach before this.
I have to deal with everyone asking me questions.
Well, we did. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right. In regards to the topics, those are some interesting headlines. Eviscerate, humiliate. The only thing that was missing was destroy. But somebody said humbles. I guess humbles this quarterback coach. I think eviscerate's a very strong word. and like Brady said, he made light of the situation. Now, again, not being sensitive, I get if Deshaun feels a way about that just because that was a serious part of his life. But in regards to what you were saying, Brady, you're right. They never want to clip out the whole conversation. They're only going to clip what's going to give you views on Twitter, on Instagram, right? So, and if you look at this, me and Brady were actually having this conversation about Deshaun before we actually came on the show. He's in a situation where, like you said, the $230 million, if he's not all the way healthy and he goes out there and plays like trash, right? We talked about the mental aspect of this, right? And we don't know where he is mentally, but you would assume going through what all he went through in the offseason, like we saw Baker Mayfield give it up for the team, right? Just before he got there. And what they do, Brady and Will, they still got rid of him. Right, because he didn't play well, wouldn't hurt.
They didn't reward him for it.
Where
they didn't reward him for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's different because Deshaun has the money, but it's like in his head, he's like, they're already tearing me down. If I go out there and look like he did versus the Colts, which he shouldn't have been out there, I think anybody that watched that game for 5 minutes realized he should not have been out
But
there
hold on.
game.
Here's the truth. Has he played well last year when he got here or this year so far?
No. He's had one good game since he was traded to the Browns, and he got hurt.
Really well. Yeah,
the Titans game he played well, and he got hurt in that game.
You would think, I mean, and we're not genies in the bottle, right? You would think him getting more used to that offense. We talked about it last year. He came back with the 6 games. When you miss a year and a half, Brady, you know this. You miss a year and a half of football, you're going to stink for probably 6 or 7 weeks anyway. So he did come back. He had training camp. Didn't look too well the first 2 weeks, but he did start looking good in week 3. Then the shoulder injury happened. So, I mean, this guy's missed what? 2+ years of football still?
Again, but like it's his own fault of why he missed some of that. I mean, he chose not to play for the Texans. That's part of it. And then obviously the other things that he did off the field put him in that position. But the reality is too, it wasn't like he wasn't with the Browns last year. You know, he was able to practice before he even got there and was able to kind of start for the team and play for the team. So again, here's the problem is when you sign that big of a deal too, more pressure is added to that, right? There's higher expectations when you're compensated what you're compensated for the job that he's doing. And look, again, I speak from someone who grew up in Ohio, who grew up a Browns fan. Like that's the expectation of it. I think a lot of people, you know, they kind of cast away anything off the field and they're like, yeah, I'm buying in because I want to win a Super Bowl, right? That's all they cared about.
Yeah.
And so when you saw last year's play and then this year's play so far, you're kind of like, all right, it's a little tougher pill to swallow because they do look at this team. They're like, we just need a guy in there to not turn the football over, hand the football off, and manage the game, and we can win a lot of football games that way.
Hey, you know who'd be good in that spot? Baker Mayfield.